So we have reached the obligatory AI session. Um, it's so funny. I want to start with just the point we are in the hype cycle. I think this tariff nonsense has distracted us from AI for at least a week, as it probably should. But it's still there. It's still being deployed. It's still bubbling along. Where do you think we are in the AI, hype cycle? Are we, are we still heading up? I think each of you have some pretty unique perspective on that.
Yeah, I'll start off. One, I apologize. I almost lost my voice yesterday, and I was actually going to use AI to introduce myself today, but it came back a little bit. I think one of the AI voice agents was Snoop Dogg, so I thought, I wonder how he'd sound introducing me. In the AI hype cycle, just this week, I would say we got a really clear signal from Shopify's CEO, Tobias Lüth, and he basically sent out a mandate to his employees that you are going to have to use AI. That is going to be an AI-first company, and that they are going to have to prove that a job can't be done by humans unless they want more headcount, right? So that is a pretty clear signal, the fact that we've moved from the hype to actually businesses are implementing this in a very strategic and practical way because they want to see the ROI on this. And I think that's where we're at this point.
Yeah, I think his point was that he was like, it's going to be one employee with 1,000 agents alongside of them. That's the kind of scale he's looking for.
You have to prove that AI can't do this, otherwise I'm not going to give you a headcount, basically.
We are in a very, very conflicting phase. I see skepticism and practicality coexist today. So yes, we have that kind of a signal from a Shopify CEO, but I also see a lot of skepticism out there. And I also hear a lot of different opinions, like why would we use AI? And a lot of disappointments as well. Whenever someone tries to apply AI to some of the use cases, not whenever, but there are a lot of cases where that ends up being a failure.
I think that's the thing. We've reached that first point of failure where a year and a half, 2 years ago, and the message was coming from the top a lot of times, do some AI. We need some AI. We need to change our company name to .ai. And it was all these initiatives got launched. It's not inexpensive to build these solutions or maintain them. And you saw that when those projects ran their course, very few of them actually costed out and made the business money. Do you have any, can you talk about some of the failures along the way? What did those companies do wrong?
You're going to hear us probably say this. If we had drinks here, I'd say drink every time we say data, because data. The biggest failure that we see in companies, at least that I've seen, not just at my current company at Encora, but in previous, I worked at a startup. I worked with VCs and private equity, and it's data. If you don't have, you've heard this, good data, it doesn't matter if you have the most, sophisticated LLM model, right? It doesn't even matter because, when I'm talking to my daughter, she's 8 years old, I try to explain to her how important your inputs are. So I know previously the chief CEO mentioned the kitchen cabinet. Raise your hand if you've ever had to, if you've ever improvised when you're cooking, right? And it doesn't always turn out exactly. I improvise. I'm okay, it'll be fine. No, it usually is not. And I look at it as the same way. So a lot of the failures that we see is because they don't have the correct data architecture in place. They're not prepared for it. They're also not thinking ahead on their foundation levels when it comes to, we're on-prem, which means, your entire hosted site is physical, and AI uses so much compute power that you need not just cloud services that we use on our Apple phones, but real power to run AI systems. And I think sometimes just running into that is sort of a miss for executives, because you're right, you do hear from the top down, let's do AI.
I would just add one thing to that, the fact that I see being the most impactful reason for these solutions to fail is lack of critical thinking.
From the engineering side, from the executive side?
From the executive side.
So explain that a little bit.
Well, it starts with we need to do something with AI. That's the most simple explanation. Like, really, what do you need to do and why? And then continues with, well, we just pull AI and just get that latest model from whoever, and it will magically solve all of our data problems, like the ones you were mentioning. Like, we have data quality issues. Oh, let's get AI to solve that, to address that. And then over-reliance on AI models. I've seen that happening a lot of times. We will get that model, it's really built to solve this task, and it will just work within our system. But how will you integrate that model into your system? Who's thinking about integrations today? How is that going to be handled? Who is going to use that kind of solutions as well? Whose workflows are changing with those solutions that you want to put in place? And also, just thinking that AI magically solves anything and everything, it's a risk.
So I know we talked in the prep call about how many specifics we were going to get into and whether we're going to name companies or not. But pivoting to the companies that are deploying it, are embracing it, and are really getting value out of it, do you have any stories about who's doing it right that people can learn from?
From some of the well-known companies or the companies we are working with?
Either way.
I mean, I can jump off. I think the two big ones that we can name that have been in the news, Klarna and Salesforce. Salesforce's Mark Benioff has been just a bull with making sure that their company was going to be AI first. And, you know, initially I think they were going to add AI tools to Salesforce in their CRM, but completely reevaluated how their organization was going to run, and made Einstein just a part of the actual part of Salesforce, right? It's not just a tool you can use in Salesforce. Einstein, Salesforce is really just a big part of their operations now and how their functions are set up. So I think that was, that was a big success for him. And Klarna, same thing. I mean, we've seen kind of the back and forth from their executives.
Yeah, I mean, Salesforce is interesting because their whole purpose is to make sense of data, and to structure it, and so they almost have an advantage in that structuring data is their job. That was their job before 10 years ago. It's their job now, and adding AI in, it sort of helps them out. But Sanja, do you have other examples?
I can actually pull some examples from the companies I've been working with, and one thing that makes a difference is knowing what problem they solve. Mm-hmm. When you start with a problem, then you can actually get to a solution that works for you. So, for example, we have been working with one of the very big flow systems manufacturer, and they had an issue with the bidding process, like going through multiple thousands of files that were part of the bidding documentation to pull all the parameters and get quotes. And to create the bid document in the end was just enormous manual work for them. It took them 10 days to go through that manually. It brought up the operational cost to, I think $500,000 a year, for example. And also that was not the biggest problem. The biggest problem was that they had a lot of opportunity loss because they weren't able to bid for all the opportunities that were there. So we built an agent for them to automate that step of the process, to go through documentation, to reduce that manual work from 10 days to 3 days, and change the role of the one that was doing it from the one going deep into the documents, pulling the data from, getting sense out of it, to the one that was validating the work that was done by AI. So the augmentation part here is very important. I think the most impactful and most successful solutions will be the ones that encourage human AI collaboration. So the augmentation is definitely the direction I would go for. And again, understanding what problem you solve.
Absolutely.
I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, I work in strategy, which I'm coming at the first part of the problem, right? So I speak with founders and CTOs and engineering leads on what is a business problem that you're actually trying to solve, not the engineering problem. And my background's in journalism because I always want to know what the story is. Like, why are you doing this? Is it just for AI's sake, and you don't explain it to me in a very technical manner and what cool thing you're going to build, but what is the problem that you're going to solve for your stakeholders? And keep in mind there's multiple stakeholders, from your frontline employees to your C-suite, to your actual shareholders perhaps, but also your customers, right? So what is the problem you're going to solve, and is AI, because sometimes it may not be the solution. Like if you go to the doctor and they tell you, you're like, yeah, you go ahead and do that. You're like, do I need that? You sure I need that? It is kind of the same thing. Like, why do something that you don't actually need that's going to solve your problem?
We talked about this a little bit, and that the solutions, these AI solutions, may not be buildable with the staff that you have, with the departments that you have, with the structure of your business, because it's brand new. It's moving quickly, it's evolving quickly, but there's also a thinking process that may not exist in a lot of companies. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the resistance of your traditional engineering team, your IT department, in sort of embracing these solutions, or at least seeing where this is going?
Oh, that's a hard topic, I would say. There is a lot of resistance, especially within the companies that are not technology-first companies. The more traditional ones, the ones that are relying on more of the off-the-shelf solutions than built-in solutions. So these are the companies that are, I think, hardest to get in, to innovate in, actually. And you have to be creative, I guess, when you're entering such a company, and when you're trying to figure out how to do that change management, because the culture shift is actually the one that is going to happen within those companies. You have to be creative. Like, do you do training, and do you do upskilling of the existing workforce? Do you augment teams with some of the other engineering teams? Like, what is needed? Is there a solution they can use? Is there a ready solution they can use? Or will the problem they have to solve be solved with a custom-built solution? So a lot of questions you have to ask upfront. And but first and foremost, see if the company is ready to change.
Yeah, their AI readiness.
AI readiness, data readiness, but also adoption. Adoption is the key to success. So is the company ready to change from that adoption perspective? If it's not, what is it ready for?
Yeah, let's go into that adoption, because we've talked about sort of the challenges of building these solutions from the top down. Once these things are live, how have you found employees reacting to it? Whether it's developers who are now working with a companion and that they've been told by their boss to use, what's the response among employees themselves?
I mean, I would say, just to go back to your point here, the companies that I've seen really succeed and do well are the companies that are digital natives, right? So these are companies that are, AI first, cloud first, data first. Those are their principles. I will say that enterprises and legacy companies are starting to act more like digital natives, because they've realized they've got to be more agile. They've got to find ways to embrace this new technology, and they do have to shift the culture mindset, because just in the last 6 months, technology's moved so fast. And the way, if you've ever worked at an enterprise, if you work in government, some decisions and shifting culture takes a very, very long time, and that does not work today. That does not work today. So getting people on board, I think, is critical. From developers, I've seen there is, I wouldn't even say apprehension. I think that they're ready to do it, but you also want backing from your C-suite, right? Like, they can do it, but is this fully backed by the C-suite? What sort of timelines are we looking at? What sort of they want metrics to be able to evaluate and be evaluated on as well.
From my perspective, adoption is not something you start to think about the moment your product goes into production. That's a clear failure. A clear failure.
You should do it beforehand.
You start thinking about adoption the moment you have an idea to do it, to do that new product. And you integrate the entire adoption principles into the methodology that you apply to develop solutions. So that's why I think that the entire methodology is wrong today. the way we develop data and AI solutions is wrong, and it has to change. Because that's not something you do by having a 5-year plan for development. Things change so fast. You have to do it quickly. You have to do it iteratively. And
Exactly.
you have to be ready to pivot.
I mean, I would always call this the come to Jesus moment, right? Okay, let's have a real honest conversation on where you are and where you want to be, right? This is assessing, you want to be AI first. Cool. But are you actually ready for it? Do you have your technical infrastructure that's ready for it? Is your staff trained on it? Do you have the staff expertise to do this? I'm not going to name names, but a startup that I was working with, they wanted to, really just put AI in, right? Like AI, like you've heard it, put AI in. But the thing is, they did not have the engineering expertise to create the solution. And this is I always use examples and illustrations here, but I don't do DIY work because it's going to take me 50 times to figure it out, watch the YouTube video 75 times and scroll back and forth, and it's still not going to be right. And so when you see companies think they could do it by themselves instead of relying on actual expertise to get things done faster, because you're working with experts who can come in and do the job. They show you how it's supposed to be done. They give you the principles, right? So like data governance. I can't tell you how many companies I've seen that will say that they don't know about data governance principles in place.
So last question before we go. Give me an example of how you use AI personally on a daily basis.
Personally on a daily basis. Okay, so I use Speechify, if anyone has used that. I love it. Google, is it Note? We were just talking about
Notebook
this.
LM.
Notebook LM. Because I'm either in the car, I'm always on the go somewhere, I'm at the gym, and I like to listen to as much information as possible. So even if I'm reading an article, if I'm reading something, I will just drop it in there and have it play in my car as I'm driving. And it really helps, sort of the productivity angle for me.
I love LLMs, so I use them daily. I use Perplexity to start a search, to start a research. For example, whenever I have to research a company that I need to talk to, or I need to come up with a new concept, I have some idea in my head, but I'm not sure if that already exists or something similar has been done, I start with Perplexity. But my next go-to LLM is Claude. Claude gets me. And
I think you just wrote their tagline.
So I just take whatever.
You better register that URL right now over lunch.
I take whatever I ended up with using Perplexity to Claude and then continue working more into more details. I also use Claude for coding. Claude helped me get back into coding after a couple of years of break, so good for Claude.
Also, I think that I think that's actually I think AI is going to allow so many more people to dabble in coding and vibe code, and it's going to be, I think, that'll have to be our next conversation, or we could do it over lunch.
I would love to be part of that conversation. I have a lot of thoughts.
Okay, we will keep the conversation going. We have all day, but I want to give other speakers a chance. Thanks so much for taking the time and coming up.